The Senate Committee on Government Affairs will come to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Ellison? Senator Krasner? Senator Neal?
Present.
Present. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Please let the record reflect we have 6 members present. We do have a quorum. Please mark Senator Neal as absent excused. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Senate Committee on Government Affairs. It's great to see all of you. Just some house cleaning rules. I want to remind folks to please, if you haven't had an opportunity to sign in, please do so. For those of you who will be testifying today, if you could please provide your business card and or contact information to our committee secretary. Oftentimes we have issues with minutes and we have to contact it at later time to get some clarification on the statement you may have made. That's the only reason we got to do that. As always, I want to remind everybody we're working off of our laptops. Please don't take it as a sign of disrespect if you see folk doing this and or shuffling through paper. We have 4 items on the agenda. Well, better said 5 with public comment. Senate Bill 116, Senate Bill 282, and then we have presentations from Douglas County along from the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. Just to give everybody some idea of how we intend to move forward, we'll be hearing Senate Bill 282 first by our majority leader, followed by Senate Bill 116, and then immediately after that we'll jump into the presentations. With that, and I don't see our majority leader here, but I believe we just got a message that she's on her way. And I don't know if anybody in the room will be co-presenting with her. If you'd like to come forward now, please feel free to do so at this time. We're going to go into a brief 1-minute recess to allow for our majority leader to come into the room, and then we will move into Senate Bill 282. We are in recess. All right. The Senate Committee on Government Affairs will come back to order. We do have our majority leader joining us. At this time, I'd like to welcome our majority leader and open the hearing on Senate Bill 282. Good afternoon and welcome to your Committee on Government Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Nicole Canizaro, and I proudly represent Senate District 6 in the northwest portion of the Las Vegas Valley, and I am here today to present to you Senate Bill 282. This bill establishes the grocery initiative in our state to address food insecurity and to expand access to healthy foods in food deserts. By way of background information, I think it's important to talk just a little bit about food insecurity. This remains a pressing concern in Nevada, with alarming trends indicating a rise in the number of individuals struggling to access sufficient or healthy food. In southern Nevada alone, over 341,000 people faced food insecurity in 2023, marking a significant increase from previous years. This issue affects not only the general population, but also specific vulnerable groups, such as children and seniors. For instance, 1 in 5 children in southern Nevada lives in a food insecure household, while seniors are increasingly at risk due to factors like inflation and reduced public benefits. Food deserts in Nevada are areas where residents face significant barriers to accessing fresh, healthy food, often due to high poverty rates and limited access to grocery stores. While organizations that we love in our communities, like 3 Square Food Bank and state initiatives, certainly aim to address some of these challenges, the need for collective action, I think, is critical to combat the growing food insecurity crisis across the state and to expand access to healthy food. To address some of these very important issues, I introduced and am presenting to you Senate Bill 282. So, Chair, with your indulgence, what I would like to do is briefly walk through the key sections of the bill. We'll start with Section 2, which provides a definition of food desert as a census tract that meets certain poverty, population, and food accessibility standards. Alternatively, the Council on Food Security within the Department of Health and Human Services, or in short, what I will refer to as DHHS, may designate one or more existing areas as food deserts through regulations based on data that includes poverty levels and grocery store access. I would like to note, and the committee should have received, a very small, friendly, conceptual amendment clarifying that we're authorizing DHHS rather than the Council on Food Security to designate these additional census tracts as food deserts. And that was submitted by the chair of the Governor's Council on Food Security, and I believe the committee should have that. Subsection 1 of Section 3 requires DHHS, in coordination with the Council on Food Security, to establish and administer the grocery initiative. To the extent of available funding, the initiative shall award grants of money and provide technical assistance and other information to grocery stores in Nevada. The initiative's objective is to expand access to healthy foods in food deserts and areas at risk of becoming food deserts. Section 2 sets forth the costs the grants may cover, which will include market and site feasibility studies, marketing and promotional materials, paying the salaries or benefits of grocery store employees, paying the rent of the building or making a down payment on the purchase of a building or other facility, purchasing ownership of an existing grocery store to establish a new grocery store, capital improvements, planning, renovations, land acquisition, demolition, or equipment purchases, or any other costs that DHHS determines are eligible for a grant. And that's designed to provide just a little bit of flexibility. Subsection 3 also allows DHHS to award grants for energy-efficient equipment upgrades to existing grocery stores. These types of grants are limited to no more than 20% of the total grant amount available in any fiscal year. Subsection 4 allows DHHS to set certain limitations on the size of grocery stores and establish priorities for awarding grants. Subsection 5 authorizes the director to adopt regulations based on the council's recommendations to carry out the provisions of this section. Section 4 sets the eligibility requirements for a grocery store to receive assistance from the initiative. Specifically, the store must be principally devoted to selling groceries, including fresh fruits and vegetables, derive no more than 30% of its gross annual revenue from selling tobacco or alcohol if located in a county with more than 100,000 residents, accept payments from the 2 federal programs, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, or the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, or WIC, and provide for the retail sale of a substantial variety of perishable foods, including dairy products, fruits, vegetables, meats, poultry, and fish. Section 5 requires DHHS, to the extent of available funding, to provide technical assistance to any grocery store awarded a grant, as well as other small independent grocery stores to ensure the long-term viability and business success of the grantee or independent grocery store. Examples of assistance would include things like business planning, marketing, financing, supply chain management, and workforce development assistance. The department must also provide information and materials on its website to support the growth and development of grantees and other grocery stores. Additionally, DHHS may enter into contracts and agreements with public or private entities to provide such technical assistance. Section 5 also authorizes DHHS to apply for and accept gifts, grants, donations, and contributions from any source to establish and operate the initiative. Section 7 requires the council to research and develop recommendations relating to food insecurity in urban and rural food deserts in Nevada and sets forth the study requirements. Section 8 appropriates $10 million to DHHS for establishing the initiative. And lastly, Section 9 requires the council to submit to the 2027 legislative session a report summarizing the research and recommendations developed by the council as set forth in Section 7. With that, Mr. Chair, that will conclude my remarks. I am happy to answer any questions that you or the committee may have. And thank you again for allowing me the time to present.
Thank you, Majority Leader, and thank you for walking us through the bill. Members, any questions on Senate Bill 280? Senator Ellison, please.
Thank you. And when I looked at the fiscal note, it says that the state contains appropriations not including an executive budget. Is that where the funding is going to come out of here?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Senator Ellison, Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6. So with respect to the fiscal note, there is a fiscal note on this bill. It does contain an appropriation. That appropriation, the appropriation that is within this bill, in Section 8 for that $10 million to DHHS, is not currently included in the governor's recommended budget. So typically, when there's an appropriation that is not included in the budget, a bill, should it pass the policy committee, I would anticipate that this bill would make its way to our Finance Committee for consideration for potential funding of that $10 million. But that note is simply reflecting that this $10 million is not currently accounted for in the governor's recommended budget that was submitted to us. So it would have to be a decision of the legislature and the Finance Committee to fund that $10 million. I would also note that within that section of the bill, it does permit DHHS to utilize 1% of the funding appropriated for any administrative costs. So I believe that with respect to that $10 million appropriation, that should cover the resources required for DHHS and then also the money to fund the initiative.
And then the other thing, I couldn't hear, my machine just quit. I couldn't hear when you were saying about alcohol and cigarettes that would be exempt from any of the stores that it'd be the purchase or remodel. Is that correct? I apologize for that. I'm going to grab my other one, but.
Thank you for the question, Senator Ellison, through you, Mr. Chair, to Senator Ellison, Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6. So one of the eligibility requirements for a grocery store to receive assistance from the initiative includes that they cannot derive more than 30% of its gross annual revenue from selling tobacco or alcohol if located in a county with more than 100,000 residents. The reason for that is that we added this population cap to the provision after some discussions with some stakeholders who noted that there are entities selling food in rural areas and on tribal lands that may be the only grocery option for those communities, and they may also provide tobacco and alcohol products. So we made that accommodation to account for some of the larger urban areas. We want this to really be focused on providing that healthy food and access to that for grocery stores and to provide incentives to help develop that within these food deserts, but recognizing that in some of our rural areas and tribal lands, that may not be feasible. And so that's where that language came from and why it exists in the bill.
I appreciate it, and I apologize again for, I couldn't hear the record. Thank you.
Members, any additional questions? Madam Majority, Vice Chair Orenshaw, please.
Thank you very much for sponsoring the bill, and it's certainly I think will help a lot of people. Do you think if this bill passes, we might see small businesses maybe trying to open grocery stores that would have fresh fruits and vegetables and try to provide them, to communities where maybe other big chains have closed? And
Thank you for that question, Senator Orenshaw. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Senator Orenshaw, Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6. Yes, that is absolutely one of the things that we are hoping will be accomplished with some of the language in this bill, if we are able to get it across the finish line. We recognize that there are areas where, you may have had major chains close and there just is simply not access to that. And so I think providing some of that assistance, especially to small businesses, would be exceedingly helpful in allowing for folks to continue to access food in what we are commonly seeing as food deserts in areas of the state. Absolutely.
really appreciate that. Not in my Senate district, but very close across the border. Several years ago, we had a large, kind of super Walmart that shut down, and many, many families depended on that for groceries. And it would be great to see something like this provide more opportunities. Thank you.
Senators, any additional questions? Well, I think it's because of your title, Madam Majority Leader, that some folk are scared. I'm kidding. Everybody loves the bill. Thank you for working on this. If I may ask you to please sit back in the gallery. And at this time, I'd like to invite anybody wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 282. In Las Vegas, I don't see anybody, so we'll start here in Carson City. If you could please come forward. I want to remind you that the button, there's a button right beneath the mic that turns green. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. Allison Herzik. I am the Director of Government Relations for Dignity Health St. Rose Dominican, but I proudly serve as the Chair of the Governor's Council on Food Security. We are in support of the bill. We appreciate the Majority Leader giving the Council an opportunity to engage and include the proposed amendment before you that removes the Food Security Council as the regulatory body and instead replaces it with the Department of Health and Human Services. The Council is really looking forward to hopefully working on this initiative, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Shane Piccinini, S-H-A-N-E, P-I-C-C-I-N-I-N-I. I am with the Food Bank of Northern Nevada. We are currently serving a little over 160,000 families and individuals in a month. And as many of you know, we have a program that we call Mobile Harvest, which is a direct service where we take a 50-foot tractor trailer directly into all 13 counties that we serve that is stacked to the rafters with fresh produce. And we know that there's absolutely no way that we could meet the need. And we feel that this is one of many tools that are available to be able to actually meet the food security needs of all Nevadans, and we appreciate the work that the Council on Food Security and the Majority Leader has put into making this bill happen. So thank you.
And thank you. Please.
Hello, Chair Flores and members of the committee. My name is Chip Carter, C-H-I-P-C-A-R-T-E-R, and I'm here representing the Children's Advocacy Alliance of Nevada. CAA is the independent voice for Nevada's children and families with the mission to ensure that every child thrives. And to that end, we want to make sure that no child goes hungry at night. We know that it impacts education and everything else. So we are here in strong support of Bill 282 that will expand access to healthy foods for children and families living in those food deserts in Nevada. We echo the support that you've heard from colleagues and the Senate Majority Leader, and we appreciate the opportunity to submit our support.
And thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Kelly Crompton, representing the City of Las Vegas. The City of Las Vegas is in support of SB 282, and we thank the sponsor for bringing it forward. We are in support of the assistance that DHHS can help to provide technical assistance for those trying to bring grocery stores and food efforts into the areas impacted and help communities combat food insecurity. In 2023, the City of Las Vegas used some of our ARPA dollars to fund, to grant dollars to Mario's West Side Market, and we've seen impacts to that community from bringing those federal dollars in. So we think any dollars into the community to help combat that is helpful. The City of Las Vegas has also piloted efforts in the historic West Side where we grow fresh greens and hand those out to the community because that area is a food island. Our Economic Development Department has issues trying to recruit grocery stores into the east and west side areas of Las Vegas because those are food islands and because of the major chains that Senator Orenshaw mentioned that are closing in those areas. And so we're hopeful that any dollars that can be brought in to incentivize grocery chains, whether it's small business or large business, is helpful. So we appreciate the bill. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Hi, Austin Daly, AUSTIN-DALY, unrelated to Senator Daly. On behalf of the University of Nevada, for the record, we are proud to support SB 282 and its efforts on increasing food access for all Nevadans across the state and for helping to build food security in underserved areas. A student survey in 2024 found that 30% of university students suffer from food insecurity, and a contributing factor to that is the lack of grocery store options in the university and upper downtown Reno area. And so we are proud to support this bill. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Anybody else wishing to testify in support? Seeing none in Carson City or Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anybody wishing to join us in support of Senate Bill 282?
If you would like to testify in support of SB 282, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support of SB 282, please press star 9 now.
Hi, my name is Marie Baxter, MARIE-BAXTER, and I am the CEO of Catholic Charities of Northern Nevada. And I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak in favor of SB 282. We are in partnership with the Food Bank of Northern Nevada, one of the largest providers of food directly into our rural and frontier counties. And it would be a tremendous opportunity for people to be able to use their SNAP benefits, their WIC benefits, and have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, meat, dairy products, eggs that are not being brought out once a month or twice a month between Catholic Charities of Northern Nevada and the Food Bank of Northern Nevada. So thank you for bringing this forward, and we hope to see it continue on to successful fruition.
Thank you for joining us over the phone. Next caller in support of Senate Bill 282.
Chair, you have no more callers wishing to testify at this time.
Thank you. Anybody wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 282, Carson City or Las Vegas? Seeing no one stepping forward, is there anybody wishing to testify in opposition over the phone? BPS, please.
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 282, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 051, please press star 6 to unmute yourself. You are unmuted. Please continue.
Let's be honest, this bill isn't, Barry Johnston, BERRY, JOHNSTON, Las Vegas. Let's be honest, this bill isn't about food security. It's about corruption, crony capitalism, and pay-to-play politics. You're not helping local farmers and ranchers provide cheap food for Nevada or even the Strip. Stores are shutting down across Nevada because of crime that this very legislative body enabled with weak policies and protect criminals instead of businesses. Instead of fixing that, you now want the taxpayers to fund new grocery stores in crime-ridden areas where stores are already failing. My Smiths loses over $2,000 a week because of your weak on crime policies. Who honestly thinks this will work? If private businesses can't survive, why should we believe government-funded stores will? They'll get robbed too. And then they won't have the capital to replace the $2,000 a week that they're losing. And let's talk about where the money's really going. It's this $10 million bill is a slush fund with no real oversight that will be handed out to state-backed grants and politically connected businesses. And here we are in the biggest red flag. Section 5 says the state can accept gifts, grants, donations, and contributions. Let's translate that. State officials control these grants, which can accept money from outside sources while deciding who gets taxpayer handouts. It's a typical Nevada pay-for-play scheme. This isn't just reckless spending, it's textbook crony capitalism. The government is picking winners and losers, propping up state-funded businesses and calling it food security. Let's not forget this bill allows 1% skim off the top for administrative costs. That's 6 figures gone before a single cent reaches the struggling community. How much more of that wasted bureaucracy, sweetheart deals, and political favors? If you actually care about food access, fix crime, lower taxes, and let the free market thrive. Let the farmers and ranchers do what they do. Don't steal from taxpayers to fund another socialist disaster and give your friends sweetheart deals. Play to play Nevada is at its worst right now. Vote no. This is a stupid deal that you guys caused, and now you're providing another worthless government solution. Have a good day.
Thank you for joining us. Next caller in opposition to Senate Bill 282, please.
Chair, you have no more callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. We'll stay on the phone lines. BPS, is there anybody wishing to testify in the neutral position to Senate Bill 282?
If you would like to testify neutral on SB 282, please press star 9 now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is CYRUSHOJJATY. We do support the efforts to trim out the fruit deserts. We believe that nutrition and good meals will not only provide better health, but it will have a much long-term effect in our society and our economy. It increases productivity. I understand that some funding has to be done that's taxpayer funded, correct me if I'm wrong, but the output may overcome the negatives. But my concern is, why don't we have a lot of these stores in these select few areas? Why don't they open shop? Is it because of theft regarding the Walmart that just closed? Is it because of zoning laws? When we have a lot of strict zoning policies, codes, such as parking requirements, that make it difficult for people to open corner stores. And here's the other thing regarding the food. This makes my argument regarding the food lunches in public schools. What kind of food that's going to be served? Is it going to have a lot of artificial ingredients? Is it going to be full of GMOs? Or are we going to primarily focus on produce? Are we going to support local ranchers and producers? Or is this just going to pump up corporate large agribusinesses? So I have a few issues, but other than that, I think there's going to be a lot of positive in this. I will yield my time. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Is there anybody else wishing to join us in the neutral position for Senate Bill 282?
Chair, you have no more callers at this time.
Anybody in Carson City or Las Vegas wishing to testify in the neutral position for Senate Bill 282? Seeing none. Majority Leader, any closing remarks, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I do appreciate the time to present to you Senate Bill 282, and I will make my closing remarks very short. Obviously, as I mentioned initially, this is sort of part of what I believe is truly a community and collaborative effort, not just with the food banks, but with other community partners to help make sure that we have access to food within every area of the state. And so I think this is one piece of that solution, and I am hopeful to have conversations with everyone and earn your support for what I think is a very good bill that is going to move us in the right direction with providing some assistance to help some of these folks open up these grocery stores and allow access to good, fresh food for everybody. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you, Majority Leader. With that, we'll go ahead and close out the hearing on Senate Bill 282. Before I move on to the next bill presentation, I would like to take a personal point of privilege and acknowledge a very talented human being, very smart individual in this room, Miss Angelique Burton, who I had the honor of having in our public policy class at UNLV. I teach in the doctoral program, and she is doing amazing work here in the state of Nevada, and it's an absolute honor to have you in my committee. So welcome. If anybody needs anything, please, she will offer research. I'm just offering your services. Everybody give her a call. But she really is really talented, and it is an honor to have you here. Thank you for joining us today. With that, we will go to Senator Daley, who is ready for Senate Bill 116. And I do appreciate the amount of enthusiasm around this bill. We have received quite a bit of it. So I was looking forward to today's hearing, and I'm sure Senator Daley is as well. So excited he's coming back to the dais. Whenever you're ready, Senator Daley, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Skip Daly, represent Senate District 13. Sorry for the voice, but we'll all have to deal. I have a representative here from NACO with me. We've been working closely with them on the bill. If there's a question I can't answer, which I'm not likely, but we'll do our best, and we'll go from there. So I hope everyone saw the amended version that we put out, or hopefully you got it. If you're not, we'll run through it real quick. So Senate Bill 116 is an attempt to address pay issues for county elected officers in Nevada, including county commissioners. Currently, the salary is for elected officers are currently set by statute and not been adjusted since fiscal year 2018-19. So they've been frozen since that time for, I believe it's around 7 years. So what we're proposing to do is adjust the base rates for the everybody but the county commissioners, more closely reflect market rates for these types of positions, and hopefully let the county commissioners, or except for county commissioners, get the legislature as close as we can. It's a constitutional provision that the salaries are set by the legislature, but try to get us out of it as much as we can and allow as much flexibility as the Constitution will allow. So the goal and reasons for making these increases will have several positive effects, in my opinion. First, it will make it easier to attract better, more qualified people to run for these positions, and it will make it easier to attract qualified subordinate support staff. I know in Story County, and I may mess up the story a little bit, they had a longtime person, I believe it was the assessor, retired. The rate was set and frozen, so they had to try to get a person to run for that position. The person that was the second in charge was making more money than the elected person. They begged her to run. They begged her to run. She did. She took the pay cut, various things. So that had a couple of effects. It's hard for them to attract to get a new person to come in as the deputy. Reluctance to pay them more than the elected official. And if you're familiar with Nevada's property tax at all, there's a lot of things to know. You have assessed value of the property or the improvements. You have the abatements and various things. So it's not simple. You have to have qualified people. And if we don't have a fair competitive rate, I think it's just more difficult for especially the rural counties as well as the bigger ones. So if I'm going to go through the amendment, I hope you have it. Let me get a drink here real quick. Section 1, subsection 1 lists the elected officers that we're trying to address here: district attorney, sheriff, county clerks, county assessors, county recorder, county treasurer, and public administrator. Subsection 2 establishes the 3% trigger so that if you have a subordinate or person that you supervise that makes more than you, it'll automatically adjust the salary of the elected official to be 3% above that highest paid person. Moving down a little bit further in that same section, shows some of the things, so you can't just hire a person. So several of these people, for instance, the district attorneys in most of the counties, they're allowed to hire assistants or attorneys under the DA. And the counties have established a pay range that they can hire them at. So if they stay within that pay range, it would, if they hired someone at higher than their rate, it would trigger the 3% increase. But it wouldn't necessarily have to be a separate agenda item on the county commission. If it was outside of that pay range, they would have to go to the county commission to get that approval if it's going to trigger a 3% increase. So we want to make sure that the county commission still has some authority or some regulation of what the salaries are, including the 3% trigger. Approving a collective bargaining agreement, some of those things would also be considered notice that you wouldn't have to have a separate agenda item to move forward. Subsection 3 establishes what I'm calling a reset of the base salary. And we're working through this amendment. We discovered that for about 70% of the people in the positions, the 3% trigger would not have resulted in a salary increase. And in some positions, it would have been a question that somebody would have actually had a salary decrease. You know me, I don't want to have anyone's pay cut. And like I said, we're trying to increase this to market rate or more reflective of what's in the market for these types of positions so we can attract and retain better people. That, of course, not my intent. It would frustrate the positive effects I mentioned earlier. In Section 1, Subsection 4 clarifies that the new base rate, including any 3% increase, becomes the new base rate and that it must not be reduced for a person elected that position in the future. Question came up, for instance, I think it was the Clark County District Attorney has a couple of attorneys that make more than him. If this 3% trigger goes in, it would increase his salary. And then if one of those guys retired and he's more than 3% above his next person, would he have to go down? No, he would not. Once the rate goes up, it has to go up. We have some additional provisions in there that if the base rate goes up for any other reason, there's a proposal in here to allow the county commissioners to give cost of living increases if they chose to. We're going to work through that with legal to make sure we can do that, and it's not going to be in violation of some other provisions. But once that rate goes up, excluding the longevity, because the individual earns the longevity, not the position. So if they give that increase, that becomes the new base rate, and they wouldn't be able to reduce that for the next person running for that position. In other words, they can't play favorites and give an increase to somebody that they like, and then say somebody's going to run against you is going to get a lower rate if they win. So we're trying to make sure that that does not happen. As I said, subsection 4 would allow them to potentially give an increase. Section 1, subsection 5, that's the increase part. So under the annual salary, and the annual salaries are reset for each position in each county, the amount based on the amount that we did. So when you get into the county classifications, the reset rate, you can see them there in the green if you have it, for each county, based on what the previous amount was. They used roughly a 4% annual cost of living increase to come up with that calculation on where that is. My understanding, that's why I have Vince here, is all of the counties have been consulted, all of the counties are aware. My understanding is that this is going to work within the budget limits of all of the counties on this. Pay increases have not been put in place for some period of time. We'll see if any of them come up and dispute that, but I don't think so. That's my understanding anyway. Vince, that's your understanding?
Yeah, that's my understanding also. I mean, Vincent Guthrow for the record, representing NACO. I will say there's definitely the conversations that I've shared with our members is that there will be an initial fiscal impact, and then it should be more stable and more predictable under this provision.
And then Section 1, subsection 6 talks about the county commissioners. We have the county commissioner as a separate deal. And so Clark is separate and just the one county. Washoe County is separate and has a rate just for the one county. And then we've grouped them both regionally and by size a little bit, so everybody agreed. Lyon County, Carson City, Elko, Story, Douglas County, and Nye County would be reset at the 39,000 level. Churchill and Humboldt is an adjustment we made at 36. White Pine, Pershing would be at 33, and then Lander, Mineral, Lincoln, Eureka, and Esmeralda would be at 30,000 for the county commissioners. And then in the bill, it also says that they would get, on that, just below that, a 3% increase for the next 5 years for the county commissioners. In the original bill, Story County, when they were in a different group, were already making more than the rate that they were at. So the old section 4 is renumbered now, is deleted because everybody will get an increase and we won't have to have any no loss provision there. Section 1, subsection 7 keeps in place the ability of an elected officer to forego any increase. They can forego accepting it currently, and that stays. Section 1, subsection 8, we hope we can allow the county commissioners if there is, and it already existed, so we're going to allow the county commissioners in subsection 8, if there's a fiscal shortfall in their county and they can't pay the increases, that they can reduce it or not give the increase. The reduction would have to be across the board for all elected officials, and it would have to be at least equal to, it couldn't be less than what they gave any other county employees. So if they have their people that are not elected and they have a 5% cut, the county commissioner and the elected officials have to take a 5% cut as well. They can go higher, but they can't go lower. And then the rest of the language that is in purple, we're going to keep from the original bill. So section 2, 3, and 4 basically make conforming changes. Section 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 amend the applicable sections of the Carson City Charter to conform with the revised salary changes made in section 1. Including for the Carson City Mayor, retaining the language that the Carson City Mayor makes 30% more than other county commissioners, which was existing language in their charter. So we retained that after it was brought to my attention, because it's not my intent to have anyone lose from where they were. Section 11 asks the interim committee of the Government Affairs Committee to review and make recommendations regarding whether the county commissioner positions in Clark and Washoe counties should be full-time positions, and if yes, how will that requirement be implemented, and give a recommendation regarding county commission pay going forward after the 5 years set in the bill. They had it in LCB's draft to do it over 2 interims. I think we can do it in 1, so I changed it to 1. And I hope that's okay. And then section 13 regards reports or increases that are unfunded to the county, so that's being waived, and the act becomes effective July 1, 2025 if passed. And I do know that there's been some people, in opposition, saying it's an unfunded mandate, et cetera, and it is. The counties will have to pay this. That's why I said, and we have Vince here on that to hopefully confirm that the counties are aware. I think the benefits would outweigh any of those negative issues on trying to get these up to market rate to attract the best people, to then also make it easier to hire under subordinate staff at a more competitive rate as well. Back to the Story County issue, they're reluctant, and it's going to be difficult to hire a person at that uncompetitive rate based on the current rate of the elected official. Happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chair.
Senator Daley has promised that he is the only individual to have gone every. One that can do that, Senator.
We'll see, we'll see.
Members, I wanted to apologize for the confusion. I was just walking around. I made a mistake in not getting all the amendments to everybody. I think it came to me, and I just wanted to apologize for that mistake. That was on me, 100% on me. Apologize for that. At this time, I'd like to open it up for questions. We'll start off with Senator Ellison, please.
Thank you. Boy, you did a lot of work on this. I've got a couple questions, and I don't know if, Skip, if you can answer this, or NACO. If this bill passes, is this going to be, the county's they're gonna have to accept this and vote this in? Is that not right? I mean, this is not gonna be mandatory to each county.
Skip Daly again for the record, Mr. Chair. It will be mandatory if we set this in, same as the legislature did in the past. Set that rate, and we adjusted it, and then we gave the 5% increases for the 5 years, and then it stopped 7 years ago. The counties do have to do it. What we're trying to do, and part of the reason why I wanted to reset the rates and have it be done here, I think it's unfair then to go back to the county commissioners and then, make them have to vote on the other people. They're not gonna vote on their own. I think we're gonna do that here in this bill as well. But we are trying to reset the rate based on from where everybody was, no increases for 7 years, using a 4% increase. Previously, it was a 5% increase that was given before. So we didn't go as high as that was. We kind of go with I know there was a number, and Vince can speak to that, that they used to calculate that, but it would be mandatory.
In follow-up, sir?
My understanding is that the counties are aware and it fits within their budgets.
Okay.
Please follow up.
One of the things I was gonna ask is, you did hit on ability to pay, so you did mention that, and I think that's important. But we've had this problems before in the cities and the county, mostly the high patrol, that the matrix systems was so far out of balance with the high patrol years ago that the staff was actually making more for years but the patrolmen were not. So Pete and I worked on that and got that through, and made sure that they brought that up. But you've done a lot of work on this, and see what it goes from there. Okay.
Skip Daly again for the record, and thank you. We did work through, we had several meetings. I told everyone to come in and, tell me what we need to have and where we can make the adjustments. And I think we came to a good location. My goal was to try to make sure that our elected officials were not being left behind and not being able to make a living. So we couldn't be able to get people to run for it. Who's going to do that? And I think the net result of some of that is what you're going to attract in some of these places is the guy who couldn't make it anyplace else, the district attorney who's not a really very good lawyer, but hey, I can go to Winnemucca in Humboldt County, and I don't want to pick on Humboldt County, and I can get elected, I can, do okay, but he really couldn't get a job place else. And if you have too low of a salary, you're not going to attract someone else. It's better to come to that position. And I think that's where some of the benefit comes in. And Vince, if you could speak to how we came to the number with the percentage. I know it was based off of something. I'm losing what it was.
Hello, Vincent Guthrow, NACO for the record. It was the numbers that we sort of batted around were based on a federal standard for cost of living increases. So I think I do want to clarify just a couple things and add to something that Senator Daley said, if I could, Mr. Chair. One, I don't want to conflate, you mentioned Highway Patrol, I don't want to conflate state salaries with local government elected official salaries. These do not impact the state budget. So I just want to make sure that is on the record for the committee, that there is zero fiscal impact to the state budget. I just want to mention that since you brought up some state workers' positions in that sense. So just.
Reason I brought up the high patrol was the difference in how it was going. And you've seen the high patrol, just shown as a name, how that was dropping and the other salaries were coming up. And that was a lot of it through negotiations. But the patrolmen still had to be voted through from the state. And that dropped so much lower. We finally got that 8% in, and it finally brought it up. But it wasn't until we could figure out how to balance that out that the problem was. So I understand, this is not a state issue, and it's the only reason I was trying to bring that up is because the matrix, and at the city council, we've seen that problem, and at the county commission, we've seen that problem. So, thank you.
Senator Krasner, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Senator Daly, for your presentation. First of all, I know a lot of people that don't receive a very high salary, and they are elected officials, and they do a really great job and put their heart and soul into it. Something in here about ability to pay, who determines whether the city or county has the ability to pay these increases to these elected officials? I mean, are the elected officials deciding themselves if they can get a raise and there's the ability to pay, or how does that work? Please, thank you.
Skip Daly again for the record. Thank you for the question. And I would, on your first part of it, there's plenty of elected officials that do good work that don't get any pay, and some of them right here in this building, right? Right? There's a lot of people. And I don't think that's the point. So no, the county commission pay is being set in this bill, and it's going to go up, and then it'll have a 3% increase. The elected officials, the other ones, the sheriff, the DA, the assessor, treasurer, all the rest of the public administrator, that's going to be set to a reset number based on that 4% that we had for the catch-up, if you will, for that. The county commission then, and there's provisions in the bill, in the draft, or in the revisions, that says if the 3% increase is going to be triggered based on a subordinate making more, that the county commission has to be notified. And if it's one of the preset things where they've recognized the collective bargaining agreement, or it's within the salary range that they previously approved, that constitutes notice, so they're aware. If it's going to be somebody hiring somebody outside of that pay range they did, for instance, an undersheriff or whatever, then that would have to be approved by the county commission. If it's going to trigger the 3% increase, the county commission is going to have control over that. So it's not those individual elected positions setting their own pay. It's the county commission. The county commission will do it. And then as far as if there's a deficiency or there's not enough in the budget, the county commission is deciding that as well and saying, hey, look, we don't have the money, we have a shortfall, how are we going to do that? If they make the decision, if they can't find resources anyplace else that they need to reduce pay, they can just reduce the pay of the elected officials if they like, and that's not prohibited. That was in the existing law, and we kept that. Modified it just a little bit, but we kept it. And then if they lower just regular working people, they would have to lower the county commission elected officials at the same amount or more. So county commission has control over all of it.
Please follow.
Okay, I appreciate you explaining that. So the county commission would not have the ability to then look at the budget and say, well, in order to give the county commissioners or these other elected officials a raise, we're going to cut the senior program this year or something like that.
No. Skip Daly again for the record. No. If there was some time in the future where they were looking at between the senior program or whatever else and they had a deficit in the budget, I don't think they're going to, I can't say for sure, but I don't think they're going to cut the senior deal. The county commissions are going to make that decision. They could say, hey, we need to make cuts in these salaries, or they could say we need to make cuts over here. Whether or not they get reelected and which way they go, you know what I'm saying? But no, the county commission would have control. They could or they couldn't, whatever they decide to do.
Mr. Chair, can I just add to that?
Please do.
Yeah, Vincent Guthrow for the record. So currently, the county commission is responsible for fiscal oversight at the county, and they make decisions on how and where to fund departments now. So to just adding to Senator Daly's comments about picking and choosing, then yeah, they would have to answer to their local community members on that. That's the authority that they have now on a variety of programs. Hopefully that helps answer your question. Thank you.
Vice Chair, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Daly, for presenting the bill. My question has to do with section 11, between the original version and the amendment. The proposed study by the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Government Affairs. In the original bill, I believe it was applicable to all 17 counties as to whether the county commissioner should be full-time or part-time. But in your amendment, you're limiting it to Clark and Washoe. And I was wondering, just what is the, what's your feeling to limit it to the two most populous counties as opposed to having the interim committee study all 17 boards of county commissioners?
Skip Daly again for the record. It was always my intent to just do the two bigger counties. In the small counties, the rural counties, for instance, Story County, they only have 3 commissioners, right? There's only 2,000 people. So if you're saying, hey, that's the full-time position and their rate is only set at 39,000, I think you're gonna have a problem, right? So I wasn't concerned about that issue on the smaller counties, but there's a lot of work to do for, in Clark and Washoe for those county commissioners. I know I talked with the chair in Washoe County, Alexis Hill, and she's like on 18 subcommittees. It's a full-time job. And I think if we're gonna raise them up to the rates we're talking about, that if it's full-time pay, we should review it. And I wanted more people looking at that than just me, which is why I wanted it to go to that. I didn't call it a study, though. I want them to review it and make recommendations, but semantics on that. But it was always my intent to do just the two bigger counties. I don't think it'll work, and it's not justified in the small counties because the work, not that they don't do good work, and they have a lot of work to do as well. When you have a 3-board county commission, there's only Esmeralda 900 people in your whole county, and you're saying that's got to be your full-time job. You have to pay them more than the 30,000 that Esmeralda is going to get.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Rogich, any question? No? At this time, thank you again I know you've worked incredibly hard on this. Thank you for that. I'd like to invite both of you to sit back. And I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 116 to please come forward in Carson City or Las Vegas. Good afternoon, welcome. Whoever wishes to go first.
Good afternoon, Chairman Flores and members of the committee. For the record, Shawneen Guerin, S-H-A-W-N-Y-N-E, last name G-A-R-R-E-N. I am the president of the County Fiscal Officers Association of Nevada, or CFOA, as I'll refer to it, and I'm also the Douglas County Recorder. CFOA is an organization whose membership is comprised of county recorders, treasurers, comptrollers, and clerks across the great state of Nevada. Our duties include maintaining and preserving valuable land and marriage records, responsible and diligent management of the Treasury, and operating safe, secure, and honest elections, among a host of other responsibilities. In fact, many of our local elected officials are responsible for the leadership and management of multiple combined offices, such as clerk treasurer, clerk recorder, recorder auditor, and even clerk recorder and public administrator, as is the case here in Carson City. The ultimate purpose of CFOA is to be an organization that fosters a membership of professionalism, honesty, efficiency, accountability, while continually striving to develop and maintain public trust. The members of CFOA have worked closely through our association meetings, and association representatives and I have met with the bill sponsor multiple times. We are very appreciative of the collaboration and responsiveness of Senator Daly to date. The purpose of this bill is to provide a cost of living salary adjustment in the most fiscally responsible manner to local elected officials in an effort to maintain a degree of parity with the salary adjustments that have been afforded to all of their local government employees over the past several years. It is critical that we keep up with, but not exceed, the market value of these positions to retain and attract the most effective, efficient, and highly qualified individuals to lead these very important offices. The effects of this bill, as stated earlier, do not involve state money and will require the respective county commissions to justify and support future salary adjustments of their local elected officials. While basic living costs have risen over the past several years, local elected officials, of whom this is their full-time job, have not received an adjustment to their base salary since 2018. This bill provides an appropriate base salary increase and empowers counties to more effectively and efficiently manage their resources at the local level in the future. As CFOA, we support the spirit and the intent and goal of this bill. As I think was alluded to, we're still working out the details as far as final numbers and what it'll look like, and we're happy to work with the members of this committee and members of legislature moving forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Flores and members of the committee. Chris Sarman for the record, Washoe County Assessor, also President of the Nevada's Assessors Association, as well as the Legislative Chair for our association. I just want to first thank Senator Daley for putting forth what I think is a very creative attempt to recognizing some of the concerns that we have. And speaking on behalf of the Nevada assessors, we support the cause in doing the right thing for all elected officials across the state. We support the cause and the purpose of this bill. Much of what I heard in the summary of the amendment, we haven't seen that amendment yet or shared that amendment with the members of our association. But as it stands, we support it with possible questions down the road. But I just want to reiterate that we are thankful for the creativity and what this bill presents, and mimic also some of the other members that are in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair, committee members. Michael Hillerby on behalf of Nye County. I'd like to thank Senator Daley and NACO for their hard work and for the committee for hearing the bill and here to offer our support. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Will Adler with Silver State Government Relations on behalf of Story County. Story County is a long-term engager in the county pay issue, and we want to thank Senator Daley for taking the time to bring this back to the 2025 legislature and taking all the time he did to work with the stakeholders and try and get that best good out of the perfect we're attempting. But it's a very good bill, and we like the amendment as it's being structured. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Sean Frainer, Lincoln County Treasurer. I appreciate being able to be here to support this bill. Although we have not been able to review it fully quite yet, we didn't have it beforehand. I've been in contact with other elected officials in our county. We are in support of this bill. I would like to make sure that it is known that, especially in rural Nevada, we deal with a lot of problems with getting staff and having staff working for us and having elected officials being willing to run for the offices. So we're very concerned. We have some senior elected officials that will be retiring, and we are concerned in our county for what the future may look like and what type of qualified candidates may run for those positions. Because as you know, you don't have to be fully qualified, and especially in rural, it tends to be a little bit difficult. I know with specific jobs, it's hard to find those people that are willing to live in rural Nevada. So I just wanted to let you know some of the struggles that rural Nevada deals with and that we are in support of this bill.
And thank you for joining us. Anybody else wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 116? Seeing none, BPS, do we have anybody wishing to join us over the phone in support of Senate Bill 116?
If you would like to testify in support of SB 116, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support of SB 116, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers in support at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 116 to please come forward in Carson City and Las Vegas. Seeing none in Las Vegas, good afternoon, Ms. Hanson, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Janine Hansen. I'm the state president of Nevada Families for Freedom. First of all, we haven't seen the amendment, and so we don't know what it says. Second of all, I couldn't hear anything that Senator Daley said, so we don't know what he had to say. So we're in a position of not being able to know what we're testifying on. So it's a very bad situation according to that. This is a very bad time to bring up a bill for raising salaries of elected officials. We just heard a bill about food deserts and about people struggling to have food. The average salary in the state of Nevada for an average worker, full-time worker, is about $58,000. People in the state of Nevada are struggling just to put food on the table. And of course, I know a lot of elected officials that ought to be getting more money too, and they're sitting right at your table. I do believe that the legislators ought to be getting more money for what they're doing, and I think it would increase the ability of people to participate. We're very concerned about this bill because we don't know what it means, we don't know what it says, and we don't know what the final outcome is going to be. And we don't think it's right to be raising salaries, whether it be the county or anybody else, in a time of economic uncertainty in which we find ourselves. Right now, about 60% of everyone's income goes to federal, state, local taxes, many of them hidden. And so we are already taxed out to the max. And this is another opportunity for local counties to be able to be spending more money. The original bill in the LCB Digest said it eliminated the authority of the county commission to not pay the salary increases for how elected officials if the county does not have the financial resources to pay. I couldn't find that in the bill, but I was concerned because I've always depended on the LCB's digest. We're very concerned about this bill, and we'd like to have a lot of clarification if we could have that. And we're very concerned about raising rates for elected officials when the people are struggling. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson. That was almost exactly 2 minutes.
Oh, good for
Perfect.
me.
Thank you, welcome.
Chairman and committee, my name is Lynn Chapman, Lynchapman, and I'm the state treasurer of the Independent American Party. And ditto to what Janine had to say, I couldn't hear what was being said, and of course, we don't have a copy of the amendment. And I had such good testimony, too. So I'm not sure what to say, other than I've been really concerned about the money situation, and if the money isn't there, I know that Senator Krasner was talking about the ability to pay, and that's what I was really concerned with too. And we were told something about, well, I think I heard that it wouldn't be taken out of the seniors' money, but we don't have any guarantees, do we? So I'm really concerned about this whole thing, and I'm not really in favor of it until I know what in the heck's going on. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Is there anybody else wishing to testify in opposition? Seeing none in Carson City. VPS, do we have anybody wishing to testify in opposition over the phone? Senate Bill 116.
If you would like to testify in opposition of SB 116, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hi, this is Yolanda Canuck, Yolanda, last name Knaak. I agree with Senator Krasner's concerns about the county commissioners paying their boards more in order to, and then having to cut other important programs for seniors. I guess maybe people don't understand, our nation is on the verge of bankruptcy. I think it's been on the verge of bankruptcy for more than 6 months. And I know that Washoe County is going to DC to try to get more money for Washoe County. And so I think this is really a bad timing for this. I would recommend that you bring this back when our economy improves, maybe like in 2 years. And the other thing too is I did not get the amendment because it's not in Nellis as of yet. And I didn't hear what it was because I joined late. So thank you so much. I'm in opposition to SB 116. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. I do want to make it clear that the amendment should appear on Nellis for those of you who are either on your cell phone and or laptop. I understand that was not uploaded previously to give everybody ample time to prepare remarks, however, and again, I take responsibility for that, but it is up there now for those of you who would like to take a look at it, please. BPS, next individual wishing to testify in opposition, please.
Hello, my name is Michael Ryan, Michaelryan. I'm a longtime resident of Nevada and a Marine Corps veteran. Please vote no on Senate Bill 116. This bill increases the salary of all elected officials in the counties by 3% above the highest paid employee under the supervision of that elected official. It forces the county commissioners to raise their own salaries and salaries of other elected officials, even if the county does not have the financial resources to raise them. It's an unfunded mandate. This bill is outrageous. Nevadans are struggling to put food on the table. Now is not the time to raise the salaries of elected officials in the counties. Please vote no on Senate Bill 116. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Next caller in opposition to Senate Bill 116.
Hi, Barry Johnston, Las Vegas. I am strongly opposed to this, not because I am opposed to fair pay, but because I oppose a system that guarantees automatic raises with no accountability. I agree we need to pay market rates to attract the best talent because you are hiring morons who don't work. But that means evaluating each position individually, not rubber stamping raises for every elected official based on their highest paid employee. Let's be clear. Who decides those salaries? Other government officials. Even worse, we have to worry about unions negotiating raises for their employees, which automatically trigger raises for elected officials. Those unions may have endorsed that elected official. That is a serious conflict of interest. There is nothing stopping elected officials from approving pay bumps for their top employees to guarantee raises for themselves. And we've even seen this kind of abuse before. Look at the corruption under Nicole Cicerano as district attorney, robbing seniors through civil asset forfeiture when she was diverting money that could have gone to payroll. We can't trust them, to be honest. Her actions directly contributed to food deserts, making life harder for working families. Now we want to give these same officials a blank check to raise their own salaries. And what happens to the economy is struggling. You tax us to death. What happens to counties that don't have the money to fund these increases? This bill takes away from the county commissioner's power to freeze salaries in tough financial times. That means even if local budgets are stretched thin, pay hikes keep coming at taxpayer expense. And let's not forget that money could have gone to critical services that employees and the public rely on. This is not about fair wages. This is creating a self-serving, unsustainable system where government officials and private sector unions can game the system to keep raising their salaries year after year. We cannot afford to give bloated bureaucracy another way to nickel and dime us into bankruptcy. Let's pay competitive wages and hire the best, but let's do it responsibly. We have terrible services. Look at NDOT. Director Larson's a disaster. We need to raise the pay to the highest in the country and find someone to replace her that's competent. I agree. Find the best wage. Pay the person fair. But don't demand a system that ensures that we need to demand a system that ensures fairness without wasting corruption. We can't trust you guys.
Thank you for joining us, sir. Next caller in support of Senate Bill 116. In opposition, of Senate Bill 116.
Good evening, members of the committee. This is Bob Russo, and that's spelled R-U-S-S-O. I'm speaking today in opposition to Senate Bill 116. I'm uncomfortable with the idea of the state having their hands in the finances of counties. I think county financial decisions should be there with the county. As you know, there's a lot of counties right now that are struggling to make ends meet, and and cover their own expenses. And with these pay raises, how on earth, where's the money going to come from? Are they going to have to raise taxes, for example? And of course, as has already been mentioned, we're living at a time when a lot of people are struggling to make ends meet. I don't think this is a good bill. I think it should be rejected. And on top of that, like others have mentioned, I had a difficult time understanding what the amendments in the bill are. But as I understand it right now, I don't think it's good for the state. I don't think it's good for the people of Nevada. And again, financial decisions should be left in the hands of the county and not mandated by the state. So again, I ask you to please oppose Senate Bill 116. Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us. Next caller in opposition to Senate Bill 116.
Chair, you have no more callers at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in the neutral position to Senate Bill 116. Anybody in Carson City or Las Vegas? Seeing none, BPS, do we have anybody wishing to join us over the phone? Neutral position for Senate Bill 116.
Chair, your public line is open and working, but you have no callers at this time.
Thank you. Senator Daly, any closing remarks you may have?
Hey, Mr. Chair, again, Skip Daly for the record, and my record is intact. You know, they're either for or against. I never have anybody neutral on the bills. A lot of work has been done on this. The fact of the matter is that the state, the legislature is required to set the compensation for these positions. So I think some people are just, you know, don't have all the facts, jumping to conclusions. To Senator Krasner's question, the county commissioners are going to act in the same responsible ways that they are now. We're just going to be paying them a fair wage and compensation. In a budget like Clark County, which has a bigger budget than the state, right? It's a rounding, it's a decimal point. I mean, it's inconsequential in the overall scheme of things. And like I said, we did as much as we could working with NACO to get every county in the state understanding what this is, and I believe in agreement. I apologize to everyone too. I tried to get the amendment out as quickly as we could. I think I got it out Monday evening, and I think people are able to look at it now and take a look when you do that. And we do have the provision in there. The original bill did say that they had to do it regardless of any fiscal issues. And we recognize that that was incorrect. We shouldn't be doing that, and we put those safeguards back in. So anyway, with that, I think some fine adjustments give people a chance to relook at this, but we'll get back with all of the interested parties, and I think we'll be able to come back and say we got it for the rest of the committee to consider at some point in the future.
Thank you, Senator Daly, and thank you, committee members. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and close out the hearing on Senate Bill 116. And next, I'd like to open up the presentation by Douglas County. If you could please come forward. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, or excuse me, members of the commission. I'm back in commission chambers right now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Davidson. I am the Douglas County Manager, and I thank you very much for the invitation to present to you here today on some of the goings-on in Douglas County. It has been my pleasure and privilege to serve as the County Manager since June of 2023. It is a particular passion for me as I grew up in my community, went to high school there, and have a lot of family members invested in the community. And Douglas County is a pretty special place. With me in the audience here today, I do have one member of my county commission, Commissioner Gardner, who is the Vice Chair of the County Commission. With that, I'll jump into the presentation. This slide shows each of the commissioners who have been elected in the districts that they serve in. Currently, our chairwoman, Commissioner Hill, serves in, was elected to represent District 2, and our vice chairman, Commissioner Gardner, elected to represent District 3. The elected county officers for Douglas County include our assessor, Trent Tholen, our clerk treasurer, Ms. Amy Bergens, who is also in the audience today, our district attorney, Mark Jackson, our recorder, Shawneen Guerin, who you heard from earlier today, and our sheriff, Dan Coverly, which you will hear from in a presentation immediately following mine. Our county executive leadership team includes myself and also our assistant county manager, Wendy Lang, and our chief operating officer, Kathy Lewis, who is also in the audience here today. Our mission is in Douglas County, as defined by our county commission, is working together with integrity and accountability. Douglas County provides cost-effective public services, fostering a safe, healthy, scenic, and vibrant community for the enjoyment of our residents and visitors. Our core values include integrity, accountability, customer service, leadership, communication, teamwork, and respect. We engaged our community in conversations regarding our core values before our county commission selected these values. We enjoy very interactive, engaging conversations with each of our stakeholders and community members, and we appreciate their participation in helping to set the vision and future direction of our community. Speaking of public engagement, recently our county commission embarked on setting a strategic plan for our community. Through an extensive public engagement process, we identified 4 core objectives for our community, including balanced growth and infrastructure, preserving Douglas County's natural beauty and rural character, serving our community, and enhancing resident quality of life. This slide summarizes the important goals and initiatives contained within our strategic plan. If members of the committee wish to see additional information on our strategic plan, I've included a QR code and you can access that information on our website. Douglas County's governance structure is very unique for the state, I believe. We have a variety of unincorporated towns and I believe the most general improvement districts versus any other county government. And all of those are listed here. I won't bore you and go through each of them. We also have the Douglas County School District, the Fire Protection Districts, and other taxing districts with which we work. What that means is the financial pie, the revenue that we receive, the taxes that we receive are split lots of different ways, and that makes it a challenge for local government. Some census data for you on our community includes information on our geographic size. Our population currently is hovering around 50,000. Our per capita income is about 52,000, and our median household income is slightly higher than the state's of 88,000. Our median gross rent is comparable to the region's gross rent of $1,500, and we have 4,800 proud-serving former veterans, or excuse me, now they're veterans, proud-serving Americans in our community. This is a breakdown of the demographics for our community. We are 80% white, 13% Hispanic Latino, less than 1% Black, 2.1% American Indian and Alaskan Native, 2.2% Asian, and 0.3% Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander, and 3.2% 2 or more races. Our age demographics are slightly older than that of the state demographics, with 33% of our population, almost 34%, 65 and older. We have 14.5% residents who are under the age of 18 years, which reflects a declining school population, which is an interesting challenge for our school district. We have 49% females in our population, and language data, we have 10% of our residents who speak other languages. Regarding our organization, we have 24 departments, 9 elected officials, and 11 departments that fall under my management, including the public administrator, public guardian, and China Spring Youth Camp. This is a breakdown of the total personnel full-time equivalents in our organization. We have 613 employees of Douglas County, 211 of those positions are related to public safety, including our sheriff's office, our courts, and our DA. Our general fund total individuals is, non-public safety is 140, and our non-general fund personnel are 261. This is an overview of our budget in Douglas County. The total revenue that Douglas County collects is $160 million approximately. Of that, $66 million goes to our general fund, $53 goes to special revenue funds, $6 million for capital projects, $1.5 million for debt service, $13.5 for enterprise funds, $6.8 for internal service funds. We have a redevelopment fund for 1.3, and our unincorporated towns receive $11 million. Our general fund totals $67 million. Of that, the total amount collected, the revenue sources are broken down here. $32 million comes from property taxes, $9 million comes from licenses and permits, $16 million comes from state consolidated taxes, $3 million comes from other governmental sources, an additional $3 million comes from charges for service, and we have $1.1 million in miscellaneous revenue that we collect. Again, to further break down our general fund, this reflects similar information that you would receive for many of our local government partners in the region. Our salaries and wages of the total amount of our general fund are approximately 50-60% at $31 million, employee benefits at $16 million, and services and supplies $14 million. That leaves $4.5 million for all other things, including transfers out from the general fund for various purposes. I was asked to bring some housing data to the committee for your consideration. This information, a good portion of it comes from U.S. Census data. Housing units in Douglas County currently total around 25,000. We have 4 affordable housing developments in Douglas County, which equates to 142 units in the Valley and 94 units in Lake Tahoe. In total, those 4 developments take up 20 acres in Douglas County. We have a variety of projects that have been approved for development. In the Valley, that totals approximately 9,000 units with 6,200 units remaining. In Lake Tahoe, we have 95 units approved with 99 of those units remaining. That totals approximately 4,300 acres of available receiving area left over for Douglas County for development. We have approximately 21,000 households. Of those, 78% are owner occupied, and we average 2.3 individuals per household. We have a number of projects currently going on in Douglas County, but we wanted to highlight some projects in particular. In TRPA Phase 2 Housing Amendment, there are some updates going on at the lake. In addition, recently Douglas County did update our county code to include a tiny house ordinance based on the law that was passed by the legislature. Additionally, we have a UNR housing needs assessment that we are conducting, and we are expecting the results from that housing needs assessment later this month. We have a variety of challenges when considering housing affordability in Douglas County. Those challenges include limited land use and zoning designations for certain housing types. We only have so much land zoned for multifamily projects, and only so much receiving area in Douglas County. Additionally, we have a growth management ordinance that was passed through, first it was a result of action by the voters, which resulted in the county commission passing the growth management ordinance, which places a limit on the number of building permits that can be allocated each year in Douglas County, and is designed to cap growth at no more than 2% annually. We also face, similar to our neighbors, the rising cost of construction, and location is absolutely an issue in Douglas County. What that looks like for us is our receiving area is typically located where it makes sense, closer to towns where services and amenities to serve that development can be easily accessed, but that is not the most cost-effective, reasonably priced land in Douglas County. The land that is more conducive to affordable housing development does not have access to utilities and other government infrastructure that would make affordable housing ideal in those locations. So how is Douglas County preparing for future growth? We're doing a variety of things in my community that include updating our county regulations in Douglas County. That's our Title 20. We are in the process of reviewing our land use and land zoning. I mentioned the housing assessment that we're doing with UNR, and I included some bullets in my presentation about what that information is going to include. We plan to use the findings and recommendations from the housing assessment in addition to our transportation plan analysis that we're doing to determine where housing makes sense and to look at our master plan and update our area plans to properly plan for and place housing and put development to work for us where it makes sense. I mentioned the master plan update. I also just want to talk about, for Douglas County, anytime we talk about housing, it's an important balancing act conversation for our community. I mentioned Douglas County is a very special place. The state of Nevada is a very special place. We don't want to lose our community identity when we're discussing matters of housing. So we have to consider conserving open space and our agriculture community when we're deciding where housing is best placed. Social services. Douglas County does not have a homeless shelter, although I'm very proud to report that no individual who is homeless or in need of services goes without shelter or without food when they ask for it in our community. And we do our best to approach individuals in need and to connect them with those resources. Each year, Douglas County participates in the nationwide point in time count. And in 2024, that data collection resulted in 5 individuals reporting that they were unsheltered and 6 residents reporting that they were residing in motels. The school district reported 1 child was unsheltered during that time. I've included some additional breakdown information about from the school district regarding youth homelessness on this slide. I won't go through that, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have later. Social services offers also ongoing case management that includes workforce development. As I mentioned, we offer temporary housing and shelter to those in need. We offer deposit and rental assistance and referrals to additional resources including food, transportation, healthcare, and other housing options. I was asked also to include some information regarding the county's language access plans related to NRS 244.184. The steps that Douglas County has taken is we have designated the Chief Operating Officer as the employee responsible for our language access plan. Additionally, I have reached out to the Office of New Americans and requested additional information and will continue to coordinate with them regarding our plans. We are currently collecting information regarding best practices and reviewing plans developed by other local government jurisdictions. The process for assessing the needs of the residents in the county is underway and will continue through this fiscal year. It is our plan to develop a draft plan and seek public comment on our plan. And then once that process is complete, we will move forward with its adoption and implementation. So far, Douglas County has not sought funding for language access. I was asked to provide an overview of federal funding and grants the county has received. Our total grant funding is currently $9 million. We have 49 grants open and for a variety of projects that we are working on. I've included a list here. I know that's a whole lot of information in a very tiny font on a slide, but this information will be available. I have made my presentation available. Looking ahead, critical issues for my community. I'm sure as you're hearing from my peers in local government, you will learn that local governance is more complex and more complicated than it has ever been. Frequently, I'm talking to my peers about the paradox of local government. And for rural communities, what that means is people in rural communities want progress, but they don't want change. They do not want you to change what makes their community special and what attracted them to your community in the first place. That has meant, for my community in particular, that we have more people fired up to engage with us on really complex issues now more than ever. Issues of affordable housing, we have people recognizing on one side, absolutely it is needed. On the other side of the issue, yes, I recognize it's needed, but I don't want it in my backyard. Find someplace else to put it. These are complex issues, and it requires a high degree of political courage to run for political office in local government. And I'm sure everyone on the committee understands what I'm saying when I speak to that. Similar also to our peers, I've included a list of the critical issues facing Douglas County over the next 5 years. Fiscal sustainability is at the forefront of all local government's thought process. Frankly, our revenues are not keeping up with the cost of providing service. That includes property tax revenues, consolidated tax revenues, and gas tax. I've included an image here on this slide that shows the gas taxes that the county has collected over the last 5 years and also this fiscal year. We're on track to continue with this pattern. You will notice that gas taxes have plateaued. They are not increasing. If anything, they're going down. And frankly, they're not covering the needs of my community to repair the infrastructure and maintain the infrastructure needed. Which gets me to my next point. Balancing growth with infrastructure is an important issue for my community, especially in matters of stormwater management and roads. Additionally, we have expanding demands on government services, including senior services, especially in my community. I mentioned we're an aging demographic. But also behavioral health, housing needs, and public safety are matters of critical importance to my community. Looking ahead, when we talk about road maintenance, Douglas County needs to identify approximately $6 million per year in additional annual funding to maintain the current backlog of roads that we have. And that current backlog of roads is $50 million total. In Douglas County, we have a wide variety of roads. Some are paved, some are grinding, some are gravel, but they're pretty much all our responsibility for maintenance. 40% of the roads that we 40% of the total roads that we maintain are collector roads, and 60% are local roads that serve particular neighborhoods. Also, as I mentioned, a critical issue for my community is stormwater. We have seen significant impacts from flooding and wildfire, frankly, in my community. Douglas County made the decision in 2019 to transfer out from the general fund $1.1 million annually for ongoing stormwater operations and maintenance to fund stormwater capital improvement projects, but also just the staff that it takes to clean the culverts and the ditches alongside the road to maintain that existing infrastructure. That $1.1 million was a huge step forward for my community, but we have not been able to identify a funding source to expand those efforts moving forward. And it will be an important discussion that I have with my community in the very near future. And that was my last slide, Mr. Chairman. With that, I turn it back over, and I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
And thank you for the presentation. It was very detailed. I appreciate you walking us through all of that. We'll start off with Senator Ellison.
Thank you. Very good job on your presentation. I do have a question. When they increased the tax, the fuel tax on fuel in Washoe, Douglas County up, you could see that price just go crazy. But the problem was people were filling up in Carson or Fernley or whatever to get away from the higher price. Did they ever look at maybe saying if we could drop that price down? That, well, I thought it was 5 cents. I can't remember what it was. Now it's probably current, but that'd get the people filling back up in there and keeping the money where it needs to be. But I can't believe how many people go to Fernley and stuff and fill up their cars and come back. Same as Carson. The lines are massive going into Costco. Now Costco is increased quite a bit. So I can fill up actually in Lovelock or Battle Mountain for a lot less. So I love gas wars. You might want to look at that in the future. Okay.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the point that you're making. My community did not follow suit when others raised gas taxes. It was put to a vote of the community, and every time a matter of tax has come to a vote of my community has voted not to tax itself. What that has meant for the region and commercial businesses is that basically everyone is shopping for the best deal in the region on gas. And also the businesses are paying close attention to what other businesses are doing. And they're walking that very fine line of being 1 cent or right at what other businesses, regardless of what the actual taxes are across the county line. Because that's more money in their pocket versus local government's pocket to maintain the infrastructure. I think I've spoken to my commission when we talk about real political courage. It's been a subject that's coming up for my community quite a bit. And it's a very challenging time when we have a community, and I can completely understand why they feel passionately this way, that they don't want to tax themselves. They don't want to see tax increases. They want government to work harder and smarter and be more efficient. Douglas County has done that. We have right-sized government. We have stretched the general fund dollar to the furthest extent we can to accomplish the objectives of the county. But I think similar to our peers, we can't stretch any farther. This is going to be an interesting discussion for governments in the very near future, and I don't think it's unique for Douglas.
Please follow.
And it's amazing, your roads are, that's what they raised that increase for road maintenance. And they've done a great job. I mean, you go down the street, you go down to some cities right now and you're dodging the hole. So did the money go where it needed to be? Yes, it did. But they're still going outside of the community. Yes, and I don't know if it's an education thing, but you've done a good job maintaining the infrastructure. I think so. It's really nice, but prices are what they are right now. Okay, thank you.
Next, I'll go to Vice Chair Orenshaw, please.
Thank you very much, Ms. Davidson, for the thorough presentation. A few questions I had. You mentioned the China Springs Youth Facility. Do you know the current population of kids at China Springs?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Mr. Chairman, if I may, Jennifer Davidson, Douglas County. I do not know the current population. I can tell you at max capacity. The program can take 50 boys, and I think we are staffed for 12 girls at max capacity. The camp has faced a number of funding challenges, and I especially thank you for this question because this allows me to speak about China Spring. It is an operation near and dear to my heart, and behavioral health and mental health for youth in this state is a critical issue for this state. And China Spring Youth Camp serves all of the rural counties and is frankly the only option for these youth who are at risk and need these services. I'm rambling, but as I mentioned, it's an important program, and funding is going to be an issue and a subject of conversation during this legislative cycle, and we would appreciate the committee's support in that.
Thank you. And may I have a brief follow-up, Mr. Chair? In that same vein, I remember 17, 18 years ago, there was a spike in teen suicides in Douglas County. Do you know where that's at? If you mentioned in one of your slides, mental health services, has that come down? Is it closer to the state average? And if you don't know now, maybe you could give us information later on. I just wondered if you could speak to that issue in teen suicides in Douglas County.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I do think that the sheriff might have some additional information, and if he's unable to provide it, I would be happy to. I can tell you it is a strategic initiative of Douglas County to work with our social services department and utilize opioid funding and other resources to address behavioral health and mental health for youth in our county.
Thank you. And please continue. Oh, thank you, Chair. Is it okay?
Please continue.
Oh, thank you. On the question, Chair, with your permission, Ms. Knox, would that be okay, Chair, for Ms. Knox to speak?
Yes.
Thank you.
Lindsay Knox with McDonald Crono, actually represent Douglas County, last name KNOX. The number is current kids that we serve is 19 boys and 10 girls.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that information. And that is max capacity now, or max is 50 total?
If they were funded correctly, max capacity is higher. Right now, with the way that funding currently is, they are at max capacity and potentially at risk of having to cut more.
Thank you very much. And then, what about relations between Douglas County and Native American populations? Can you describe how those relationships are?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Our relations with Native American populations in Douglas County are positive. We are engaging with them. We consider them valued stakeholders of our community. Our county commission, either our chair or vice chair, is meeting with them regularly, and we engaged with them on our strategic plan. We know we have a lot of work to do and much further to go. But maintaining our community's heritage and culture is an important element of our strategic plan, and we look forward to continuing to work with them on that.
Thank you very much. And Chair, with your indulgence, one last question.
Please.
Thank you. Ms. Davidson, you mentioned the language access plan, and you mentioned that Douglas County has not sought grants on that. Is that because there's a feeling that there's not a need, or just haven't been able to get to that yet? Or I just wondered if you could speak to that point.
Thank you for the question, Senator. I would never say there's not a need. There absolutely is a need for language access in Douglas County, and we are always looking for ways to best leverage county funding to achieve our objectives. I think we have more work to do, and we'll have a better idea of exactly what we will need and what resources we will need to achieve our objectives after this next fiscal year.
Thank you, Ms. Davidson. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Daly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to switch gears just a little bit regarding the Tahoe Basin and that. I know there's a couple of bills that are still outstanding. We're hoping to come maybe amend the compact regarding transportation and those types of issues, and also more of maybe a Washoe County area, but I think also in Douglas County on parking, especially along the roadsides, and then how we can do some of the enforcement. So I'm just trying to make sure and see where Douglas County stands on those two proposals. I know you guys followed the TRPA interim committee because we're going to need Douglas County, Washoe County. Carson City has a little sliver of support to get those types of things done to address what are issues at the Lake Tahoe. And I know I'm familiar with Douglas County on some of this, not in my backyard people. We had some people from the what they call themselves, the East Shore Alliance, and various things I think are primarily in Douglas County, and they don't want to see anybody go to the lake ever because it's theirs, right? And I disagree with that. So where's Douglas County on some of that, helping with the transit, helping with the parking? I agree with you that we shouldn't have done the reduction in the lanes on US 50, so some of those issues. So I'm hoping Douglas County will be partners in that. If you can give me any information, I'd be grateful.
Absolutely, Senator. Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. Douglas County is engaged on a lot of topics at the lake, and it's very important for us to work with our partners at the lake to achieve our objectives. The best way that we can accomplish the objectives of Douglas County is by engaging with our regional partners. We are not going to be able to solve matters of affordable housing at the lake, transportation, parking, without collectively leveraging resources and engaging in these conversations. I think you recognize that, especially, Senator, in work that you've done in bringing others together to have important conversations. Those conversations are ongoing. Transportation is the forefront of the thought process. There have been moves on the California side in El Dorado County and the city of Southlake in the creation of a JPA recently. And we appreciate that Douglas County has been invited to the table to engage with our fellow stakeholders to find out, to assess the needs of our community and define what we can do locally and then how we can, as a region, tackle these issues. I'm not sure if you are curious about something in particular that I can answer for you.
No, and thank you for that. Not obviously those bills are coming. I know you guys were engaged and worked on a few things specifically for Douglas County, especially with the event center there and that. And I understand TRPA got some of that accomplished there. And I know we reached out in the interim committee as well and invited, I think, first time in many years, the mayor of South Lake Tahoe and said, because we do have to work on that as I said many times in the interim, there's one lake, 2 states, 5 counties, and we all should have the same interest, and we're just making sure Douglas County is gonna be there to help with some of that, because we can't do it without you guys either. So anyway, I just wanted to get that on the record that was supportive. So.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Senator Daley, thank you for mentioning the work of the interim committee. I think that was very important work, and I appreciate every member of the committee and the important conversations. I appreciate especially the committee's support of the event center. The event center at the lake, their success is our success and is the success of the region. That event center is fueling the economy at the lake, and that is a huge lift and important for our lake community. Additionally, we appreciate the support of the committee in not narrowing Highway 50. Thank you for that.
If there's any additional questions? Just on, I know our vice chair had the opportunity to touch briefly on the language access plan. Do you know now, one of the things that I've kind of been having the opportunity to converse with other jurisdictions on, when it comes to language access, I think we think of it through the traditional lens of when there's an emergency, directives, right? We want to make sure that we put the information out there. And that's obviously incredibly important. During COVID, we saw just how important that was. We wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page. But I'm also engaging in conversations on, say, for example, licensing for businesses. Obviously, one of the things that I often hear about particular communities, when we talk about maybe the migrant communities, they'll bring up issues. I'm not sure that they're in compliance with this particular rule or this particular license. One of the things that I've been asking local jurisdictions to, as you're speaking with the Office of New Americans, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, of course, how other jurisdictions are doing some of that to make it easier to get folk licensed, to open up businesses. Obviously, economic kind of freedom is one of the key reasons that immigrants come to this country to begin with. So have you had an opportunity to engage in anything like that, and how we can make it easier for folk? And so, some jurisdictions have indicated that sometimes they just have a translator on site that can break things down real quickly. Other folk have indicated that they have documents that they translate. I just wanted to know if, on that front, on licensing, anything like that, if we've done any type of work to try to help folk maneuver that process.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the question. Douglas County has not specifically done work on that front. We have limited offerings through our website, and we offer services upon request. It is definitely something that we need to dig into further, and we're in the process of assessing that. And our first step is engaging with others in the region who have done it, and to look at best practices and see what is the best way and most cost-effective way to provide those services for our community members.
Great. And then I know we very briefly, when we were talking about housing, touched a little bit upon the unhoused folk that are just in that scenario, either because of mental health, addiction, or just down on luck, and housing has not been secured. Just talk to me a little bit about the wraparound services, how we identify these individuals now, understanding through my lens that the needs are very different, and what we're seeing in Southern Nevada, for example, or in Washoe, Reno, et cetera. But just curious to know if there is a program now, and are we identifying folk when, and I would assume maybe mental health and addiction may be some of the things that you've ID'd with some of your folk. Just if you could talk to us a little bit about that.
Thank you for the question, Senator. So many individuals in need come in contact with us through a variety of means. We have a wonderful community center, which is the gem of our community, a hub of activity. Oftentimes individuals will make contact with staff or volunteers in our community through our community center. We have meal service that we do there for seniors, and then our social services team members work out of our community center building. And when we find an individual in need, we connect them with our caseworkers. And they interview and assess what their needs are and determine how best to connect them with services. Additionally, we come into contact with individuals in our parks through our Parks and Recreation staff. All of our team members know how to connect individuals with our social services teams. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And I know as obviously, hopefully populations continue to grow and we start getting some more folk moving in there and making meaningful investment, those are needs that just continuously will develop, right? And we're always trying to work together and collaborate. And also, just as we have in this committee, we have the privilege of hearing from so many different jurisdictions. We always get really good ideas on how everybody's kind of trying to tackle these very difficult conversations. Members, any additional questions? I don't believe we have any. At this time, if we could have our sheriff join us, and thank you again for the presentation. As questions come along, we'll be sure to reach out, and if there's any issues that are before this committee, please let us know. Thank you again. Welcome, Sheriff. And Sheriff, just so for the sake of clarity, right underneath that, the microphone, there's a little button. It turns green, and that's when it's good to go. Thank you, Sheriff. Welcome.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here. Chairman Flores and the committee members, I'm appreciative of the interest and visiting today. Douglas County is a special place. We are very lucky to have Miss Davison as our county manager, and I think she's doing an excellent job. Today I've been asked to talk a little bit about immigration and our relationship with ICE and what we're doing on that front. First thing is immigration is the primary responsibility of the federal government. Local law enforcement does have a role to play in that, but we are not leading that mission, and it is frankly not my responsibility. But we do cooperate with ICE, and we do it in a jail setting. ICE is under the Department of Homeland Security. I have two operating or MOUs agreements with Homeland Security. One is with Homeland Security Investigations. That's what you would think of as a detective position. They do a variety of investigations, human trafficking, narcotics, those types of things, sexual exploitation of children. We recently had my task force officer went to Idaho and arrested an individual in Idaho that was involved in that. The other agreement that we have is with ICE under the 287G program. It's the Warrant Service Officer program, where when an individual is arrested, charged with a crime and booked into the Douglas County Jail, if through the questioning or the investigation is determined that they're a foreign-born person, we notify ICE, and then it is up to them whether or not they put a hold on them or what they want done. Some of the information that was asked by the chairman was our annual inmate count on ICE detainers. So in 2023, we had 14 ICE detainers. 3 of them were released. In other words, ICE removed the detainer, and so when they were done with their local charges, they were released. 6 of them were picked up by ICE, and then 5 were transferred to prison as a result of adjudication of their case, and the ICE hold went with them there. In 2024, we had 20 ICE detainers. 5 of those detainers were removed by ICE prior to their release or the adjudication of local charges. 9 ICE picked up and removed. 4 were transferred to prison with their ICE hold going with them. And then 2 were transferred to other jurisdictions, and the ICE detainer went there, and I don't know what happened at that local jurisdiction. We do not house prisoners for ICE. In other words, we don't house anyone just on an immigration violation, and we do not charge or get any compensation from ICE because we don't do that program. So we're not a federal housing facility. On occasion, they will house prisoners maybe overnight that are in a transport situation where they're going from. That doesn't happen very frequently. We perform that service for other jurisdictions also, not just ICE or the federal government, but that is very infrequent that happens at all. Some confusion resulted from a misunderstanding with ICE on an agreement. Within the 287G program, there's 3 choices that a local law enforcement agency or sheriff's office can participate in. One is a jail detention program, one is the warrant service officer program, and another one is a task force officer program. There was some confusion, and initially an agreement was signed with ICE for the task force officer. That has since been rescinded and corrected. There was some confusion on my part and on the information we got from ICE, so that's been corrected. So we are not, one of the things that we do not do and will not do is we're not going out into the community and asking people based on their ethnicity or where we think they're from, what their immigration status is. We don't ask victims of crimes or witnesses what their immigration status is. We don't do that. The only time this comes into play is when you've been arrested, charged with a crime, and are booked into our jail. And with that, I'm willing to answer any questions you may have.
And thank you for joining us, Sheriff. I really appreciate you giving us that context. We'll start off with Vice Chair Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Sheriff Coverly, for your presentation. You mentioned that when someone's arrested in Douglas County, there's an assessment to see if they're foreign-born. Is there any assessment? Obviously, many naturalized U.S. citizens are foreign-born, but they've gone through the naturalization process. Do you look at anything else, or are you looking just to see if they're foreign-born, and then do you report them to ICE, or what's the procedure?
So during the booking process, the question of U.S. citizenship or immigration status is asked. If they reply that they are not a U.S. citizen, then ICE is contacted, and it's up to them what they do with them. The reason that we do that is we don't know who these people are, all right? ICE has the database as to whether or not they are have been previously deported, if they're on some sort of terrorist watch list or what you may have it, we don't have that information. We communicate the person's identity to them, and then they determine if they need to be a hold or what kind of hold or if they're even looking for them type of thing. So without contacting them, we have no way to know if there's any interest from the federal level in this person.
Thank you. And a brief follow-up, Mr. Chair?
Please follow.
Thank you. So if someone's arrested in Douglas County and they reply that they're not a U.S. citizen, is there any inquiry as to whether they've got a green card, have legal status to be here, notwithstanding not holding U.S. citizenship?
There is some additional questions with that. They're also directed that they can contact their consulate also. And there's literature within the jail facility to explain their options. The most frequent one is the Mexican consulate, and so there's information that for them to contact they have that right to contact their consulate, how to do that, what the number is, that kind of thing. But the type of immigration status is asked also.
Thank you.
And then that information is relayed to ICE, and then but they already know that.
Thank you. And with your indulgence, Chair, if someone does respond that they have a green card, they have legal status to be in the United States, notwithstanding not being a U.S. citizen, are they still reported to ICE?
Every foreign-born person is given that information is given to ICE, and ICE has they can view that or have access to that information also. And the other thing that happens is as soon as your fingerprints are run, then if you were ever in the system, regardless of whether you committed a crime or if you were some sort of immigration contact, you're flagged there too. or your information is in that system.
Thank you. And if you'll indulge me, Chair, with just a few more questions.
Please.
Thank you. I wondered, Sheriff, do your deputies receive any training either from the department or from ICE about the procedure that you're implementing or that you have in Douglas County, trying to see if someone should be reported to ICE or not? Is there any training you offer, or does any training ICE provides your deputies?
So the agreement provides that training, and when we haven't received that yet, it's an online training. It's here in the next month or so. So we're not even doing the program yet, technically, because we haven't had the training. So the deputies that are selected to participate in this training are not all deputies. I think there's going to be 5 that are assigned to the jail, and that's their assignment. If they were to leave the jail division, that authority or that collateral duty would not go with them. Okay, so it's only in the jail, and then the ICE provides them with the training and the prerequisites or the procedure on what they want them to do and who to contact and what circumstances they would want to be contacted for. Prior to that, we were just notifying and say, we've got this guy, do you have any interest? And most of the time there was no interest.
Thank you. And so then that ICE training, it's going to be online and it's going to be coming in the future.
Yes.
And then do you plan on any anti-bias training for your deputies in the future, just to make sure that, they don't assume someone might be here illegally based on characteristics that, aren't reasonable, aren't fair?
So we already do that. We provide every deputy annually is required to attend. I think it's a 4-hour block of bias training, and that's done through a company called Police One.
Thank you. And that is related to the question of whether someone might be here legally or not in the United States, that bias training?
It touches on that. The main focus of that training is to prevent racial profiling, right? So what we don't want guys doing is assuming based on what you look like or how you dress or what language you speak or whatever, make an assumption of that you may be committing a crime or that I should stop you instead of, that kind of thing. So that's the purpose of that training, which is good. And then that also. So what it prevents is the patrol deputy from just pulling over persons that he thinks, based on what they look like or, that kind of thing. So
then that anti-bias training is really more related to racial profiling for the patrol officer, not for the deputy in the jail who's trying to determine if they think someone is here illegally.
Everyone takes it, regardless of what division you work within the sheriff's office. It is not specific to the immigration questions to determine your legal status.
Thank you. And then, is there anyone from ICE, or do you foresee anyone from ICE being on site or in your department trying to help with training, supervision? Do you foresee any ICE official being embedded in your department to try
Embedded, no.
Or even doing trainings?
The training that for this program is online, and then I think there's an annual audit that they do to make sure that the personnel that we have that's received the training are still performing the function, that type of thing. But whether or not someone actually comes, they can. I don't know that they will.
Okay, thank you. And Chair, with your indulgence, what would be the amount of time you hold someone who's got an ICE hold? That you keep them in detention?
Once their local charges are complete and they're eligible to be picked up by ICE, if there's a detainer, they have 48 hours. If they don't come within 40 hours, then we release them.
And then is the arrestee always going to need to resolve their case in Douglas County before you either transfer them to ICE in terms of whether charges are being filed or not, or if there's a plea?
Yes.
And then, if someone is on an ICE hold, and let's say they've got an immigration attorney, who's going before an immigration court, and that immigration court orders release, is that something Douglas County responds to that order, or do they still turn that person over to ICE to handle the immigration judge or immigration magistrate's order for release.
I'm not sure if I understand the correction or the question correctly. Are you asking if an immigration hearing or something occurs while they're in our custody?
Right. Do you release the person if they?
We would honor the order of that court, whatever that would be.
Has that ever happened in the past where you've had someone?
Not to my knowledge.
Thank you, Sheriff Coverly. Chair, right now, those are all my questions, but if I think of anything later, maybe with your indulgence, I might be allowed a few. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Next, we'll go to Senator Rogich, and then we'll go to Senator Day.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for coming today. My question is with regard to if the individual is subject to an ICE detainer and the person has a family, does the ICE detainer only apply to the individual, or does the information gathered extend to the family members? And then you.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Next, we'll go to Senator Daly, and then we'll go to Senator Ellison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions. I think you mentioned that you were planning on training five officers eventually. And none of them have been trained yet?
No, that is coming. So we've entered into the agreement, but it doesn't actually start, or we don't actually start doing it until they've received the training and know how to do it properly.
Are they going to do that training on duty time or?
Yes, it's online and it's part of their responsibility, so they will do it. Yeah.
Get paid back. So who pays for equipment, training? What are the other utilize any equipment that you might need?
ICE provides. Yeah, ICE provides the training, the online course. They're doing it on our PCs or computers within in the sheriff's office, and that's really all there is. That's the only cost that there would be.
And I think one more. I think at the beginning you said there were 3 potential areas that you can sign on to, and one was a task force. I remember you said you're not doing that one. So which one did you sign on to or agree to do, and what does that entail? Is there a little more detail?
So
understand, yeah.
Sorry. The program that we're participating in is called the Warrant Service Officer Program, and that is where the jail deputy, once the individual is arrested, charged with a crime, booked into the jail, then based on their evaluation criteria that we'll learn from ICE as to determine whether this person could potentially be in the country illegally, then we notify ICE, and then they make the decision whether a detainer or hold or if anything's done.
So it's primarily a jail-based deal. After you've already arrested somebody for some other concern or whatever, that's when you guys trigger the rest of the question.
Yes.
Determine if there's an ICE issue. And
it is only in the jail.
Only in the jail. Okay. I think that's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Senator Ellison, please.
Thank you, Sheriff. You're on the hot seat, huh? Hey, I got a couple questions. Do you, as the sheriff, do you operate and run the jail, or does the city do that?
So the sheriff's office runs the jail.
Don't, does it?
It's still under the sheriff, but the sheriff runs the jail in Clark County, but the level or the deputy there is different. So it's a different job description, I guess, from their patrol guys or their detectives as to a correctional officer, but it's still under the sheriff.
Thought is if you have somebody from a foreign country, Canada, United States, Mexico, wherever, and they are in there, do you check with that country to see if there's a warrant out for these guys, a murder, or it could be a robber or anything like this?
Well, they're so we do in the sense that they're run through the national database. So if they have been flagged by the federal government as or they're in Interpol, which is a nation or a worldwide law enforcement agency. If so, they're in Interpol as having a warrant, then we would be notified then. anyone that we arrest that's from a foreign country, we explain to them that they have the right to contact their consulate and then get, help from them. But that's all we do, though.
Do they usually come and pick up that, if there's a bad enough warrant that they're looking for this individual? Is that something that they come and pick up, or how do they do that?
So if it's an Interpol warrant, then usually the FBI or the U.S. Marshals will come and pick them up and turn them over to the country that the warrant is working out of. So, for example, we've had a couple individuals that we have investigated for crimes, and they fled the country. Okay, then we work through the FBI and the U.S. Marshals Service in coordination with that country, wherever they may be, to arrest, locate and arrest that person, and then we bring them back to the United States. And so it would just work in opposite for another country if they were caught in the United States.
And I was gonna ask you that question if it was the U.S. Marshal Service that did that, so good to know that. Thank you.
Members, any additional questions? Oh, Vice Chair Orenshaw, please.
Thank you, Sheriff Coverly. I was just wondering, how many MOUs, MOAs does Douglas County Sheriff's Office have with ICE? Is it just one, or are there multiple?
There's two. So ICE is under the Department of Homeland Security. And so under that umbrella of Homeland Security, we have an agreement with Homeland Security Investigations, and then one with ICE. But so two with Homeland Security.
Okay, thank you. And then with your indulgence, Mr. Chair, just one follow-up. What kind of supervisory role do you feel ICE has in terms of the deputies, checking people's citizenship status? And do they come and monitor, the activities? Do they give you feedback on what the officers are doing? I just wonder what kind of role ICE has in terms of the deputies' functions of trying to find out if someone's here legally or not.
They provide the training or the instruction on how we're to determine their immigration status and then what to do from that point, okay, which is to contact them and give them the information. And then there's some instruction on what type of detainer is placed on the individual by ICE. But the day-to-day supervision is the responsibility of the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you. And then brief follow-up, that training, that's what you mentioned in the online video that's to come?
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Krasner, please.
Just a comment. Thank you for being here today and answering all these questions, and thank you for keeping our community safe.
Thank you, members. Any additional questions? I just have a few, and I'll echo the same thing. I know you have, your job is incredibly difficult because one role is to get rid of all the bad guys and enforce the rules, and at the same time, community confidence, assurance, right? And sometimes balancing those two, I think, is just such an incredibly difficult job for law enforcement, because sometimes folk want to see you as a bad person because you're just enforcing the law, right? And that relationship is difficult. So I really do appreciate law enforcement and you, because I understand you have such an incredibly difficult job trying to make those two work. So I have two questions. I was looking through one of your, the memorandum of agreement that was signed in, and I know it's just recently, I think it was February 19, 2025. And I'm looking specifically at the one labeled Memorandum of Agreement Warrant Service Officer Program. And I think that's specifically the one you alluded to, one of the three of the 287G, and that's the one you decided to go with. If I could specifically as to Section F, and I believe it's page 3, and it's titled ICE Supervision. I don't know if you see that. Yeah, so I have a question, and I'm just going to read from it, because I was confused by this section, but maybe you can help me clarify it. Specifically, there it says participating LEA, which refers to the law enforcement agency, which would be your department, It says participating LEA personnel are not authorized to perform immigration officer functions except when working under the supervision or direction of ICE. So the way I understood that, and maybe I'm incorrect, but the way I understood that to mean is that there would be an immigration ICE officer on site with you where they're supervising the day-to-day, and I'm assuming the process would be train the 5 officers that you've indicated, and then that you'd have an ICE officer on site. Is that the way you understand that to be as well?
No.
No?
So the way I understand it is that the training will be provided. The supervision comes when the deputy contacts the ICE agent to determine whether there's a hold or what provides the information to the ICE person on the phone. So it's all done over the phone or possibly email. And then the supervision occurs there. So there's really no way to screw this up, all right? So we book somebody in, we call ICE and say, hey, we think this guy or person is possibly here illegally. Do you want to do anything? And they say, no, we do not. Or they say, yes, we do. That's all it is. There's no other, we're not violating anybody's rights or anything. We're just asking questions based on what we think may be a possibility. They're still in jail on our local charges. They're not going anywhere until they've gone through the local process, whatever that may be. You know what I mean?
Understood, and thank you. And I appreciate you hitting on that point as well. Because I know one of the misconceptions we often hear is, well, we're not letting law enforcement arrest individuals regardless of immigration status. Because I hear that often. They'll say something along the lines of, undocumented individuals are committing crimes and law enforcement can't arrest them. I just wanted to make that abundantly clear. Regardless of immigration status, you're always enforcing criminal law. Without regard to whether or not they're U.S. citizens or not, you're going to arrest an individual who commits a crime. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I appreciate that, because sometimes I'll hear that statement, and I know it causes confusion. Of course you're going to arrest an individual who commits a crime. The other question, on that same section, under ICE supervision, it says in that very next paragraph, the actions of the participating LEA personnel will be reviewed by ICE officers on an ongoing basis to ensure compliance with the requirements and laws and procedures. Do you foresee that? Do you see the kind of MOU changing over time? And what I'm asking specifically is, I'm curious to know if you think presently today the focus is we're going to identify the individual who's foreign born, we're going to relay that information, and my understanding that's pretty much the extent of what you're doing, other than the 48-hour hold. And then also with some of the investigations that you're also, where you alluded to the other MOU. But what I'm curious to know, do you foresee ICE coming at a later time and trying to request additional work to be done by your department, additional duties, or that they evolve or change over time?
I think anything's possible. Everything is driven by who's in the White House. And so the immigration activity and involvement with local law enforcement has changed since the last president to the president we have now, and that could change again in another 4 years. So is it possible? And at that time, we would have to review, or I would review the benefit of participating, or the value if I see it. And it comes down to this. This is the only reason that I participate with any federal agency. All right, and I have MOUs with several, and it is a force multiplier for my department. It allows us access to resources that I don't have. The federal government is infinite, and as far as what they can do, it seems like this is just one tool that I can use to get those people that are committing crimes in my community and who I do not want in my community. And if they're not supposed to be there, to begin with, then this is a way to remove them. And most of the immigration holds that we have are on people that are committing serious crimes. And I don't think you'd want them in your neighborhood either.
Absolutely, Sheriff. No, thank you for that. And then the only other two sections that I wanted to ask on, in that MOU, I know there's under Section G, there's a mention of interpretation services. Do you have those on site? So individuals, say you get somebody, and I would assume that there's a lot of conversation around Spanish, but maybe a language that is not as common. Is there like a support phone call, like hotline or AI? What are we utilizing to help them? I'm just curious.
So I have several deputies that are bilingual. Most of them are bilingual in Spanish. I do have 2 deputies that are fluent Polish, if that ever comes up, which it has once. We have a language line that we utilize, so you put the individual on the phone, regardless of what, and it doesn't matter what language that we're trying to get through, and then they provide that. The other thing that we're looking to get, which is new and it's phenomenal, is our body cameras. We're looking to get new body cameras that have a translation function on that. So the deputy talks, and it doesn't matter what language that we're needing to get through. The deputy pushes a button on his body cam. The person speaks into it. It translates it to English for the deputy, and then the deputy speaks, and it translates it to the language for that person, so that we're able to communicate. So that would be another. So right now I have several deputies that are bilingual. In a couple languages. We have the language line that we use, and then hopefully we'll be able to get these the body cams with that language or that translate feature, which would be great.
Yeah, that feature sounds amazing. I think there's so many different state agencies that would probably benefit from something like that. It's amazing. So the only other question there on that same section, in that memorandum of agreement, under liability and responsibility, the only real question I have, and it's more of a broad, general question. I've had the privilege of serving here since 2015, and I know one of the things that when we engage with law enforcement, particularly with law enforcement in some of our rural areas, it's just the unfortunate reality that funding is not always there to give you all the resources. You mentioned it yourself, that sometimes working with agencies that helps you utilize some additional resources. And so I think ultimately the biggest concern we've always had when engaging in the conversation of whether or not we're going to dive into working with DHS, ICE enforcement, what level of doing that, we're always concerned of spending state money because it's just money we don't have, or local jurisdictional money because it's money we don't have. And I know here it talks about putting kind of liability on you. Should anything ever happen, you'll be on the hook for that, not ICE. They're not going to come in and pay those fees. So that's always a concern of mine, and it's not necessarily your fault. I just think I should negotiate saying, you're helping us do our job. The federal government should be on the hook in anything that involves training, additional computers, vehicles, any technology. The federal government should give that to you because they're coming to a jurisdiction that's already being spread in 1,000 different directions. You have a large land mass, and you may not always have the opportunity to have all the officers you deserve to do the job, not to say you're not doing your job adequately, but to help you do the job even better. And so it always frustrates me to see stuff like this, that the federal government comes in, they're asking you to buy into them, and in return, that there should be a little buyback saying, we're going to make sure we're going to take care of that. That's why we're coming to you, right? And kind of setting up that relationship. So I was just curious, in that realm, when we talk about the training for these 5 officers, I think you said it's going to be 4 hours. They're going to be trained while on duty. So it's 4 hours they're taking away from you having the opportunity to be doing important things that we need here in the state. There's instances where you may have folk coming in to the facility. Now you have a nice officer doing a training or supervising something temporarily to make sure it's flowing correctly. Now you have to let them borrow a desk, let them borrow equipment, let them borrow space. I just want, maybe if you could, how do you see that? Do you see that as a big expense, or you haven't seen it as an expense at all? Just curious to know on the money side how you see that relationship.
So I agree with you in the sense that it would be nice if our federal partners ponied up a little more. That'd always be a good thing. Most of the MOUs that I have with federal agencies, they do provide equipment and pay the deputy that's assigned to that task force their overtime. So there is compensation that way, and they help, which is huge. This training is all online. It's very flexible. They can start and stop at any time. So if something were to, if they were engaged in the training and something came in and they'd have to stop and resume their normal duties, they'd be able to do that and then restart at any time. So the inconvenience and the cost is very minimal, and I think that it is worth, in my opinion, what we're going to get out of the agreement and at the end result.
Again, Sheriff, I really do appreciate your time, your candor, in walking us through all these questions. And I know when we reached out and asked about the 287G agreement, you immediately responded saying, absolutely, let's have a conversation about it, and sent us all the documents. So I do appreciate your time today. I know it went late, and so I appreciate your patience as well. Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you again, Sheriff.
Thank you.
All right, members, we promised everybody that Mondays and Wednesdays are going to get longer. This is probably going to become the norm, but this is the only way that we can help with not meeting on Friday. I want to make sure that those of you who have families can get to them. Those of you who have to drive far on our committee, Senator Ellison has a very long drive always. To the extent possible, I want to make sure everybody can get home as soon as they can on Friday. So that's why we're going to continue with this. We're not going to be meeting on Friday again this week, and we will try to achieve the same objective next week. And then after that, we'll see if we can continue to do it. But just expect long Mondays and long Wednesdays to be able to do that. Before we close out today's committee, I do want to make sure that I give anybody wishing to join us for public comment to come forward, either in Carson City or Las Vegas. Not everybody at once. Everybody's ready to go. BPS, do we have anybody wishing to join us over the phone?
Chair, your public line is open and working, but you have no callers at this time.
All right. Once again, members, thank you for all the questions and the dialogue today. This meeting's adjourned.